Life is one big story. And every story is worth telling. All around the world, young filmmakers like Nizam Cheche tell our stories. But who tells the story of young African filmmakers? Who shares the story of Tanzanian filmmakers paving a path of their own? Follow me on the journey of Nizam Cheche, an aspiring filmmaker from script to screen. An episode on the Odyssey of young filmmakers in Dar es Salaam. This is Beyond the Narrative.
What inspired me to come into film actually was my father. My father loved watching films, although most of his film that he loved to watch was the action genre. I love action, but he was more into it than I was. But yeah, it started there for me, watching movies. So I really got into films when he brought this movie of Home Alone and Matilda, and I think everything started from there.
Niza ni mtoto wa kwanza.
Niza is our firstborn with education background of primary to secondary ordinary level of education. She never wanted to go to advanced secondary level of education, since her intentions were to go directly to college in order to pursue art courses in Bagamoyo. I pleaded hard to complete advanced secondary education level. Then she will pursue whatever she wants.
I don't know what my late father would say if he was here today, so I really don't know. But yeah, my mom is a bit skeptical, but she's like, okay, fine, if you want to do it.
Sikuijua vizuri sana.
Personally, I had no idea of what she was doing because she would regularly go to school and come back. Sometimes she would come back home late. And the answers were, "Ma, I was caught up between art issues." Honestly, I was not impressed as a parent, but had no choice to intervene with her passion.
Niza's journey into filmmaking is a path made possible through joining a film club.
This year I got the chance to join Nafasi, and there's a list of things that you want to do that you can pick. There are those who want to do acting, those who want to do cinematography, writing, directing, whichever you want. So I could have selected acting, but I felt like here in Tanzania you can't really rely on acting. You have to have something else. So I chose writing.
The Nafasi managing director talks about the inception of the film club.
Sauti Mpya, which we had back in 2021 in collaboration with some partners, including WeWord. And Sauti Mpya was a project around filmmakers and filmmaking, of which at the end of that project, there was an expression or an interest from artists, longer term, especially for filmmakers. So in that light, in 2022 January, we decided to establish the film club, or the film lab here at Nafasi.
The film club provides a coordinator to guide and encourage budding filmmakers into production of short films.
We have a cohort every year. We had a cohort for 2022, for 2023, and now here in 2024. And every year it's similar in a sense that people will, well, filmmakers, Tanzanian filmmakers, they'll apply for film club membership, and we have like a full year of everything film production. So we go from pitching your idea to presenting your idea like in full visual story form and script, and then moving into production. So some projects get greenlit, some projects don't make the cut. So with Niza's project, she was actually one of 5 films that were supposed to get made that got reduced down to 3 films because Everyone that has gone through Film Club is actively working in the film industry here in Tanzania at the moment. And then that got reduced down to 2 films, which we filmed over this week, because one of our other Film Club members, unfortunately, she had a passing in the family. So with Nisa's project in particular, she wanted to touch on a very controversial topic, and that's what we encourage, because that's real life.
A film class gives students the understanding that pre-production, although underrated, does set the stage for a smooth and efficient filmmaking process.
Talk about set etiquettes, what you're supposed to do on set, what you're supposed to know on set. And for example, you're supposed to wear closed shoes on set, wear black clothes for the purpose of for light purposes. You wear like something white will reflect light, and that just causes disturbance. I've learned, we'd be told, like, do not handle things that are not in your department. Like, for example, if you're not in the camera department, do not handle camera equipment, because if you break them, you have to pay for them, and you bring all these things that are all unwanted expenses. So all these experiences that we were told in class, at some point when you're actually not in a film stage, you just think they're things that, oh, they're just telling these things to us for the purpose of learning. We don't actually apply them. But they really are, they really do build into when you're actually working on set.
What prompted me to make this film was how sometimes we youth can be stupid with our choices and decisions, and I wanted to show that actually. And I took that from a similar experience, that not just me, but also other girls that I know have gone through that, and it's a crazy thing whenever I think about it. But yeah, I want to tell this story too, to show youth that I know we're young and we can do most things, but at the same time we should consider our choices actually.
Others in the industry, namely Baraka and Wilson, share their take on filming as an aspiring filmmaker.
If you are making a film, you have to be really sure if this is the career path you want. It's a commitment. So despite the challenge of not having the resources to create film, you still have to have the motivation and the passion to create.
So look at the resources you have first and how they could best fit what you want to create. Because again, short films are mainly for us to experiment, which is very important for a filmmaker to experiment and get that hands-on training before you commit to a bigger project.
You can prepare your work, any of it, and you can sit with it and say it looks good. But you take it out there, everyone's going to have their own opinion, and that's sort of like, deflates you.
The film coordinator shares her thoughts on Nisa's journey in the filmmaking process.
I think she gained something from it as an actor as well. And it stretched her in ways that I think she might not have expected to be stretched in, which is good for growth.
The Film Board shares their advice to aspiring filmmakers.
Unajua sekta ya ubunifu, mtu anaweza akakaa tu akaamka akawa amebuni kitu fulani, akaona kwamba hiki kitu nikikipeleka kwa jamii naweza.
In the creative sector, a person can wake up, invent something, and he see that if he present it, he can be successful. People like it and it become popular on the street. Now that depends. If you are thinking about filming, it is important to consult with people in the industry.
Nisa shares her thoughts regarding casting of actors.
For the actors, I had to talk to people that I know. So one of the actors, Amon, the male lead, he's one of the Nafasi members. And I asked him and he was glad to do it.
Nisa had less than 12 weeks from concept to showcasing her film in front of a live audience. Her original story had 4 characters and her intended location was a nuclear family home. Days prior to production, casting and location challenges emerged that potentially could compromise the filming before it even began.
I mean, for a female actor, it was a bit difficult at first because in our film club, I didn't see any of that when I asked. None of them were there, so I had to look outside if I could get anyone else. I did get one, but after about 2 days, she had to cancel because she has something coming up and I couldn't stop her. I had to ask my friend. And this is the second time she did the film and also her first time doing narrative. So she said, oh, okay, I can do it. Even for the location, I was looking for just a simple house, but that looks like a family house. That was also a challenge to get one. Lend me even just a room that you don't normally use, even if it's a storage room. They're like, okay, I'll get back to you, Sam, don't get back to you. I'm thankful that my friend said, I have a place, you can shoot, you can come and see it. So I came and saw it, and I was like, this is all perfect. I just wanted something simple because now it's gonna be 2 characters. I don't think I'll be needing another family house, just a simple place. I've been looking for older actors for like about a week and I couldn't get anything. So at that point, I knew I had to adjust my script and find a way to tell my story without really compromising what I wanted to show. So I decided to get rid of that part where I have the older actors and just keep the 2 actors together.
Amand shares his thoughts on the industry and his working relationship with the director, Nizam Cheche.
I started to read the script for the first time. It was a bit difficult because, you know, there are many types of writing. There is writing which I am used to, and there are writing that are different. I also have to get used to them because the movies are the same. If you are used to it, you can live with people well and do something good. In this film, I played a character named Steve, a boy who is about to go to the university. He is in relationship with a girl who is also about to go to the university. But unfortunately, things done as young people gave them an impression that they made a mistake. The great thing about our director is that she's open. She talks to people, so she's like, when you give her your perspective in a scene, she will ask, can we approach the scene in a particular way? If not, she says we can add something that does not stray from the meaning of the scene. That's why we have an opportunity to add things. We talk with the director like, what about here if I hug her, or maybe here if I kiss her, and she could say, I like the idea a bit, but maybe can we shape it in this way or in that way? And our director is open, receiving ideas. She's not only receiving the ideas, she also improves upon them because she respects our ideas.
Kila kitu ambacho unawaza kufanya kwenye sanaa ya maigizo ili kujiboresha wewe mwenyewe uwe zaidi, uwe bora zaidi.
Everything you want to do in acting to improve yourself and become better, you need to start first by taking acting class. The industry has changed a lot. Many people have become accustomed to the old time whereby you can sit anywhere, talk about anything, and they will accept it. No. Nowadays, every person understands film from their own perspective. So every time they watch film, they know when you attempt to deceive them or when you have made a mistake. So all the people who make these films should first get the education on their role in filmmaking.
Here I am, I have to set about everything. I have to prepare a short list, I have to prepare a mood board. You know, it's like a map of how I want my film to look. I have to direct the actors. So I was a bit terrified and nervous, but I'm thankful that I've got my team members who are helping me, and they are professionals in this industry.
When it is all said and done, it is the audience that determines the quality of one's work.
I was a bit terrified, you know, whenever I sit down and think about it, because I do know that next week I'll be screening, and I'm kind of worried, like, okay, what are going to be people's thoughts and opinion about the film?
We give them opportunities for screening, right? So we've done screenings with partners such as ZIF in Zanzibar. We've had films screened in West Africa, around East Africa. But also we have our own screenings at Nafasi that we organize every now and then. And they include short films from the film club, but also independent filmmakers that are within our network.
Dada huyu wa nani wa Kipimo, I like the story. It's a very simple story, lakini unaelewa the crossroads kama unavyosema. Isipokuwa nikana angalia as an audience kidogo nilipotea, wamekosea, wameirudia film mara mbili nini, when the other part ilipoanza ambapo sasa naona kwamba hana mimba. Sijui as a filmmakers ni what choice do you make there? How do you help an audience understand kwamba we are crossing to the other side hapa?
We were looking for a good transition with that, but we decided to go with a bit of a sound effect, if you've heard it. Yeah, it was like a something like that. Yeah, that one made us switch coming back to reality, that she was all over in her head. Alikuwa tu kwenye mawazo yake anaogelea mwa, kwa hiyo akarudi back in reality baada ya mwanzo kuingia. Yeah.
I understand directing is really hard, but a key thing is within the emotions of the characters, especially the lady wa Kipimo. I think there could be more emotion, especially at the crossroad.
So I was on the search for actresses that could deliver that what she's saying, because I also wanted that. But I was running out of time, and I didn't have much time to start looking for actresses, and also I had to ask her because she's a good friend of mine that I know, and she agreed. So in the directing, I would tell her that, so we need some emotions, and then she's like, give me something more. But let me tell you, in reality, that's how she is, even when she gets bad news. I don't know why. So I wouldn't really want to blame her. For someone just being her first time, I can say she did a good job, And yeah, that's how she is. You tell her bad news, she goes, okay, that's her way of showing. So I had to go with that. I didn't want to push her so much because it was the first time, and it was also my first time.
Most filmmakers underestimate this power of free screenings, as they are so called. They normally call them, they're just free screenings, but it's actually not free. This is a marketing strategy. It's a marketing strategy. It's an audience outreach strategy. You are trying to create demand. You're trying to create new clients. So festivals, screening spaces are very important to the cinema industry. I could tell you, like, currently, most people are not watching Tanzanian films, but they are watching films from Hollywood, from Bollywood in the cinemas. We could go to the cinema houses and I could ask you how many Tanzanian, not Tanzanian, just African films being screened there. Trust me, in a lineup of 6 months, you might find there's not a single African, not just Tanzanian film, not a single African film being showcased there. If you ask them why, they will tell you in terms of it's business. They put their money where they know there is benefits. But trust me, isn't there benefits in Tanzanian films? There is benefit, but how do you reach to them? So if your films won't be accepted in those cinemas, where can you take them? So you need these collective spaces. You need these screening spaces for you to reach this audience. This audience might not give you that money directly, but they can push you to another level whereby you can get the funds that you're looking for.
The cinema houses that we now have in the countries, or rather the chains and the brands that we have, are not ours. They're international brands, right? So they serve that. It's through their commercial models are to show blockbusters and international films for them to gain audience, right? But if we have our own local cinema houses, we used to have outdoor cinema, drive-in, that we could have shown whatever we wanted because it was a Tanzanian-owned space, right? We would not have been dictated by. In fact, the dictation would have been, please show things that are culturally relevant to Tanzanians, right? But the cinema houses that we have, not to name any brands, are international platforms. So they operate on a commercial model that is outside Tanzania, that doesn't serve the Tanzanian culture or the Tanzanian content or anything like that.
Tanzania tuna tabia moja, mtayarishaji ameshifti, mwongozaji ameshifti, mwigizaji mkuu ameshifti, mhariri ameshifti, mtengeneza subtitle, unaona. Sawa. Exactly. Hilo si jambo baya, lakini nakuja kuumiza kazi. We love telling stories, and previous obstacles like equipment or technology are not obstacles anymore for Tanzanian filmmakers. So you find people pulling resources and finding innovative ways to tell stories through cinema, but then where do they exhibit it? Where do they distribute it? Now, for a long time, I was one of those people who believed in getting Tanzanians into the cinema halls. Because if you look at the history of Tanzanian cinema, it was very common to find the average Tanzanian person going to the cinema hall. And it did well. You know, tickets were sold out. We were one of the few countries that had significant number of cinema halls. I mean, before independence, we had close to 40 cinema halls across the country, which is one of the highest numbers in East and Central Africa. So you can imagine, like, I've asked myself many times, where did we go wrong? So it's part of this campaign in the film world where we're trying to get people to go to cinemas. We reduced the ticket prices, we would remove our percentage so that the ticket price would go low. And I did this for a couple of years until I came to this very stark realization, which sounds obvious now, that the problem was not that people weren't going to the cinema houses. The problem was that people didn't want to go to the cinema malls. Because all our cinema houses in the main cities are centered in multiplex malls. We don't have independent theaters. So somebody whose income at the end of the month is barely $200 is not going to spend $6, $7 on going to watch a film if they're going to be in a space where they're constantly reminded what they can't afford. And that's what these malls are, right? They're in very elitist, urbanized spaces. The idea shouldn't be to get Tanzanians into cinemas. It should be to get the cinema to Tanzanians. We have to bring the screen to them. And that's why these new initiatives like independent screenings, community screenings, it really thrills me, and I participate in them. I've also organized them. We ran a Kijiweni cinema for 2 years, where we would do screenings of African films for free and have discussions afterwards. I collaborate with many people to do community screenings. We have equipment that allows us to do outdoor screenings.
Screening culture is not an activity exclusive to communities of film enthusiasts. The Film Board is also an active participant.
Program tunafanya inaitwa screening and reviewing.
There is a program we do called screening and reviewing. We invite a producer. He comes with his crew and a few actors. We watch their film together and then we start to make comments regarding the film. This is a good area for self-education, and many have been glad because at the end of the day, they find it to be a conductive class in and of itself. What can be done to make this better? What mistake they made? And is it supposed to be this way? So it is a program that assists them a lot to enhance their work. And we have done this program a lot here in Dar es Salaam and in Njombe. We will continue to do this program as per funds organized it.
Stakeholders in the industry hold similar sentiments about Tanzanian cinema, and the Film Board sheds more light on the matter.
Tukiangalia filamu zinatayarishwa nyingi, lakini changamoto imekuwa kwenye quality, ubora ule wa hizo kazi. Kwa hiyo unakuta wapo watu wanaotengeneza.
It is quite observable that there are a lot of films produced in Tanzania, but the problem comes down to the quality. There are some people that create great films, and we do appreciate that. The work that goes to cinema are ones that need to be great quality. So you find that the work that is produced is suitable for the cinema are few, but even the Tanzanian audience that goes to cinema more often than not prefer to go to cinema to view international films than our domestic films. So what I can say to producers is that you need to create films at high standard so that even if you sell here in Tanzania, you can also sell somewhere else because the quality of your work will make it well received anywhere in the world. But for the society as well, it is important to support our domestic films because when we show up to watch our domestic films, we will strengthen our industry, which gives the financial capacity for even better films to be made. So for Tanzanians, you should try to support Tanzanian producers by buying their work and watching their work if it shows up in cinema. Talking of a culture for producers to be able to put the work in the cinema, because in the whole world, that is the first step. The industry here produces work for the television, but that is the very last step.
I think it's difficult to call Tanzanian cinema sector a film industry because we are on our way to become a formalized industry. By industry means that there's the basic infrastructure for a filmmaker to have a career. You know where to begin, or you have an idea at least where you can begin with your career and what trajectory you can follow. If you want to be a cinematographer, if you want to be a film director, if you want to be a production designer, there's certain elements that are in place that allows it to be called an industry. We're struggling with that. We make a lot of films in Tanzania. The volume is significant, close to 2,000 films a year. But we lack formal infrastructure that allows us to sustain it as a livelihood or as a career. So I think we need to redefine what that means for us. If you look at some of our fellows, filmmakers or artists in North America or in Europe, I mean, they have unions in place, they have associations, they have guilds in place that not only takes care of their livelihood, but also makes sure that there is a trajectory for a career to do well. Whereas I think for us, we really need to redefine what that is. I have noticed in the last 10 years of my career that it's quite exciting to see what's happening now as opposed to 10 years ago and probably even 20 years ago. There are more filmmakers, especially young filmmakers, who are interested in making films, and they're looking for alternative means of getting their work out there. So because of the lack of spaces for a career to grow, filmmakers are developing alternative ways to tell stories. You have the short format that's becoming quite more common, which are 60-second videos or 2-minute long videos being put on YouTube to gather a larger following or a fan base. You have other filmmakers who are still using the longer format, but maybe putting it on apps, on mobile apps, and there's some local mobile apps that are also getting into this industry. So I can see that it's changing now, and the definition, the classical, traditional definition of a filmmaker is also changing.
Ukandamizaji haukupi pumzi dende, unakukaba roho.
Watu wengine wanateseka kwa matokeo ya matendo yako.
Nitastarehe tu pale wazungu watapondoka Zanzibar.
For Tanzania, we're still catching up a little bit, right? If you look within the region in comparison to somewhere like Nairobi, where actually local people consume local content quite a lot more. So Kenyans tend to consume their own content either on YouTube or Netflix. They're very behind that, right? So in terms of production quality, in terms of production investment, they're a little bit far ahead. In Tanzania, we're still catching up. We have a fantastic mainstream film industry, the Bongo movies, which is wonderful. But there are filmmakers that are producing independent films that should be competing at international levels, right? So international levels, I mean in places like Netflix, in places like DSTV, even on YouTube as it were, but it requires a level of investment that we, in Tanzania filmmaking industry, we are not yet there, or especially in terms of quality of content and diversity of content. So what something like the Film Club enables us to do is produce a diverse range of content type, right? So we're not all consuming a single storyline every single time, right? And that in Tanzania, for now, it's something really that needs to be worked on. Also just figuring out what the audience wants, because at the end of the day, we're producing this for a specific audience, right? What do the Tanzanians, what are they receptive to? We know they like comedy, we know they like love stories and the likes. But then in terms of short films and other genres of work, what do they like? What can we create that is quintessentially Tanzanian content that can compete on these global or international spaces such as Netflix and the likes, right?
The Tanzanian Film Board talks about their role in regards to the careers of filmmakers.
Kazi kubwa ambayo bodi ya filamu inafanya ni kusimamia filamu na michezo ya kuigiza, ambapo mara nyingi watayarishaji wa filamu ambao tunaita watozi huwasilisha zile script zao.
A big work that the film board does is to oversee films and theater industry in Tanzania. We examine scripts submitted to check mistakes, to prevent repetition of work. The board also arranges them in categories and authorize film to go on air or to grant access to cinema houses. And once filmmakers are granted permission, the scripts are then used for television or cinema or even online platforms. They also represent groups and laws that are legislated for filmmaking in the country.
Naomba unisamehe.
Currently, our biggest market has been focused on TV, which is good because it helps us to get sustainable income. But I think what producers are lacking is that we're forgetting that there's a big world, there's a whole earth, and there are 7 billion people who would wish one day to watch Tanzanian content. So I feel like we are limiting ourselves, focusing on the local market only. That means it's local televisions and etc. distributing our content here, rather than understanding that there are standards that we could reach and could be able to distribute our films and content. So I think where we need improvement, I think is to be able to now produce work that would actually cross borders and not just the East Africa region. So I think my biggest example has been Kijiweni Production, based on their approach of how they create film. They focus on the quality, they focus on a good story, but they also focus on creating strategies to allow that story to travel. Meaning they're promoting Tanzania in a way and helping the industry grow, because having credibility, having an Oscar-submitted film, it gives credibility to the industry, to us young filmmakers, to now like, okay, we have an example, that means we can do more. So I feel like producers, a lot of us, we're still fixed and tied up to the local market, and we're not looking at ways of expanding. We're not taking advantage of the film festivals happening in the globe. We're not taking advantage of other opportunities that are out there, because film is universal. It's a universal language, and we've been focused on here.
Wilson Kaya believes that the majority of industry professionals focus on producing work for television consumption. The Film Board weighs in on why this focus is a symptom of a broader market issue.
Eneo moja kama zaidi kwa Tanzania kupeleka kazi kwenye television. Hivi vituo haviwezi kununua kazi za Watanzania wote wanaotayarisha filamu. Lazima zitachagua wachache. Kwa hivyo unakuta kwamba wengi wanaobakia.
An area in which we normally take film work is television, but they are not able to take all work produced by Tanzanians. They will have to choose a few. However, for majority of the remaining film work produced, we see that the industry has market problem. So it is important for the producer, before creating a film, to do research to know the audience you are creating for, the methods you are going to adapt, what way you are going to advertise your work, and the expected returns upon investment.
The films that get distributed on streaming platforms go through either very well-acquainted producers who have those kind of networks, or it goes through distribution agencies. We don't have a distribution agency in Tanzania. We barely have, I would say, less than 5 or less than 10 in East Africa. So, and they're the ones who, the exhibitors, like a streaming platform or TV, that's who they deal with. It's rare that exhibitors deal directly with the filmmaker. There's a distributor in between. So because of that lack of distributor, a lot of times as producers we have to approach the exhibitor directly. This doesn't create a level playing field because you're not negotiating the same way. Exhibitors would rather deal with distributors so they can pick up a slate of films, 10, 15, 20 films, rather than negotiating every time there's a single film. You know, you look at a streaming platform like Netflix, it has tens of thousands of films in its database. It's not had tens of thousands of meetings. It's going and picking up a slate of work. So it's getting that from distribution agencies. So I think if you are looking to get to those kind of platforms, you have to start looking at the distributors who are selling to those streamers and the distributors who are negotiating with the channels. And that's who you would work with. That would be my advice.
Artistically, Tanzania goes to a certain point and it stagnates. So an artist would learn all the technical skills about cameras, and then they get somewhere they know nothing about storytelling, nothing about editing, nothing about, you know, the creative side of things. So they know the technicalities of it, which you can learn on the go, you can learn through. But we're lacking that mentorship as well. We don't have anywhere where younger filmmakers can be mentored to develop their ideas, how to, you know, to write. We don't have anywhere where these younger filmmakers can be taught what the ecosystem actually looks like. You produce a film, fantastic. Where do you sell it? Right? How do you even negotiate selling your film? It's not cake where you just exchange once. How do you maintain royalties and things? So those conversations are not happening as much as the industry needs. It's not happening as much as the actual artists need. Right? Filmmakers they are nafasi. Right? They're not on hypothetical spaces. So they may not necessarily understand this entire ecosystem we're talking about. Again, that's to do with formalities of how education and training is offered. Yeah, but I know there's independent people who are happy to mentor, happy to train, happy to sort of have apprentices as filmmakers.
Siku zote nasema, filmmaking is problem solving. Kwa hiyo wewe unatabiri vipi changamoto ambazo zitakuja kutokea na kwa namna gani uko tayari kukabiliana nazo? We are very fully aware that the arts world and the creative world is a precarious industry. You know, it's very much based in the gig economy. So like in consultation or doing workshops, doing trainings, attending festivals, potentially winning awards that have a financial value, and small gigs here and there, you know. Right now, everybody wants to have visuals attached to their events, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a birthday party, whether it's a corporate event. People want visuals. So, you know, there is an opportunity to cater to that, to somehow make your ends meet, and then to at least allow you to get through the month, and then you can focus more on the creative angle. Yes, it would be ideal that we could make our livelihood from the creative work that we want to do. But in this gig economy, it's rare to find that. It's not that it's impossible. Like I have managed, it takes long, you know, you have to spend a lot of time raising finance through winning grants and competing with other filmmakers for potential financing for your projects. In that way, you can get a salary, you can keep the company alive. But in the grant world, you know, things take time and it's never confirmed. It's always a hit or miss. But I would also think the same could be said about many other industries, you know, not just the arts. I think there's a lot of industries out there that are very precarious, especially with the economy right now, where you could have a job one day and not have a job the next day.
Filmmakers, amateurs and pros alike, make mistakes that could make or break a career. But fortunately, successful habits leave clues behind for aspiring filmmakers.
So I've been in productions where you're not paid, you work and then the producer disappears. So things like that would break a filmmaker's career because one, you're not loyal, you're not trusted, and that word spreads. So I think investing in people and investing in your professionalism is very important.
As filmmakers or as artists, we get so excited when an opportunity arises that we just put in all our emphasis, all our energy, financially and emotionally into the project, and we don't like to deal with bureaucracy. Which is true, I've been there and I've done that, But the unfortunate reality is that when you don't read your contract, those things really hurt the work and your career. You know, you might be selling away all your rights to your work. I'm able to have a career because I'm still able to financially benefit and creatively benefit from the work I made 10 years ago, because I keep my rights. Or if I sell my rights, I negotiate them. You negotiate them based on territory, on duration, on format. This allows me to keep my work alive. So we have to diversify our forms of income. We have to think about different formats. We have to think about different ways of signing contracts, different territories as well. So think about IP and not physical products when you're selling your film.
An alumni of the film club shares what it takes to succeed in the industry.
You start from the ground up. So it takes years and years of practicing, years and years of being on so many sets for you to get that experience, and also for you to be recommended to other spaces and also to make films.
Nisa shares her reflections from her journey into the production process, and we dive into the business end of filmmaking.
When it comes to filmmaking, money is everything. Even if it's just a low-budget film, still, that's money there is needed. You know, money is needed over there, whether you like it or not. And I had to somehow to get deep in my pockets for some other things.
I think for me, what helped me understand the business is when I got an opportunity to be part of the Multi-Trade Stanley Factory, which was a fully funded program that I applied, and they only wanted a person with a passion and desire to actually improve the craft and learn. So through that 1 year of training, we learned on the practical side of film, like how to make a film, from writing to ideation to pitching it, because that's another area. You need to pitch it in front of people to understand the story. And at the end, you need to produce it, recruiting the team, casting, what to consider when you're looking for the actor, how to attract actors, how to allow an actor to perform based on your story. At the end of the day, once you make a film, how do you take that film from this, like the film, now taking it to the market, to the people, like doing festival runs, doing cinema reviews, taking them to streaming platforms, taking them to TV, and etc. But apart from just that process, they led us to understand the business side. How can you survive as an artist? What are things to consider? Example, registering a company, registering as a consultant, creating invoices, like the whole tax, and understanding the tax system, because at the end of the day, you're working in a system and there's systems that are running that system, so you need to understand that. So I think with me, when I knew that, oh, okay, you could be creative, you could have the skills, but you also need to have the business mindset to understand how you're planning your finances, the banking system, to understand how are you able to save, how are you able to plan, how to charge, because that's another area I was lacking. I didn't know how do I charge, because every project is different and it requires differently, but you're like, how would I charge? People want day rates, but day rates is different depending on the nature of the project. So how do I charge based on that? So when we came back, we had issues because, again, Tanzanian market is also still the film and TV landscape here as well. It's growing and it's evolving, so there's so many structures and policies not in place to support an upcoming filmmakers. So there's so many things you have to take time to learn by yourself, because they aren't written anywhere. So with us, when we came, we opened a company, we didn't know so many things, but what we realized is that it's important for us to partner with other production companies that have been existing to understand how the production landscape here works. That helped me a lot when I joined Honor Stories. They have been established. They've mainly focused on telling impact stories that are for NGO. So I understood how does a production company is able to produce work for the UN, is able to produce for the BBC, is able to produce for CNN. So with that, we were able to produce these stories and understood how that landscape worked.
Behind every story across the globe, there are filmmakers safeguarding our stories and our heritage. It is up to us to give our filmmakers and our stories a life on the big screen. This is Beyond the Narrative.
Watch Capital Television on our digital media platforms on YouTube, Capital Television Tanzania, Facebook, Capital Television Tanzania, and on Instagram, Capital TV TZ. Digitech Decoder, channel number 1103. Capital Television, your channel of choice.